Today we're diving into cognitive psychology. But what exactly cognitive psychology about? Well, it's a scientific investigation of human cognition. It's our mental abilities to like perceiving, learning, remembering, thinking, reasoning, and understanding. So, the cognitive comes from the term cognition. The word cognition comes from the Latin word cognoscere, which means to know. So, in a way, we're exploring how our minds know things. Cognitive psychology has a rich past. It emerged as a response to behaviorism. The idea that we could study behavior without considering internal mental processes, but cognitive psychology challenged that notion. Cognitivism is the study of psychology, focusing on mental processes. It explores how people perceive, learn, remember, think, reason, and understand. The cognitive learning theory explains that the brain's role in processing information when we learn. Cognitivism is a learning theory that focuses on how our minds process information and convert it into knowledge. Cognitivism delves into the internal cognitive process at play during learning. Cognitivism asserts that learners actively engage in processing information. It's not just about passively receiving knowledge. Learners play an active role in constructing meaning. Think of it as assembling a puzzle. Learners take individual pieces, bits of information, connect them, and create a coherent picture in their minds. Cognitivism zooms in on several critical areas like knowledge, memory, and thinking. So for knowledge, it's how learners acquire and organize information. And for memory is how we retain and retrieve what we've learned. And for thinking, it's a cognitive process like problem solving, critical thinking, and decision making. So basically, it's about active mental engagement. So whether you're learning a new skill or solving a puzzle or even appreciating art, your cognitive gears are turning. So now let's move on to the cognitive theory of Jean Piaget. Jean Piaget is a Swiss developmental psychologist and philosopher. He developed the cognitive theory and he also revolutionized the understanding of how human intellect develops. Jean Piaget's cognitive theory, also known as genetic epistemology, is a comprehensive framework that explains the development of human intelligence from infancy to adulthood. Piaget's theory views children as active learners, constructing their understanding through environmental interaction. The term genetic here doesn't refer to genetics in the biological sense, but rather it signifies the genesis or origins of knowledge. Piaget was very deeply interested in understanding how our minds construct knowledge, especially during childhood and adolescence. And so, Piaget proposed 4 sequential stages of cognitive development, and each of them marked by distinct thinking patterns. These stages progress from infancy to adolescence. So the first one of the stage is the sensory motor stage. Start from the birth to 12 years old. So infants explore the world through their senses and actions. They learn that objects continue to exist even when they can't see them, a concept known as object permanence. So, during this stage, infants explore the world primarily through their senses, like sight, touch, taste, hearing, and such, and also motor actions, movement. Their understanding of the environment is closely tied to their physical interactions with it. As I mentioned earlier, object permanence. Object permanence is the realization that objects continue to exist even when they are out of sight. Before this, for example, if a toy disappears from view, An infant might act as though it no longer exists, but as object permanence develops, they understand that the toy still exists even if hidden. The next one is pre-operational stage. It starts from 2 years old to 7 years old. Children start using symbols and language to represent objects and ideas. Their thinking is still centered on themselves, making it hard for them to understand other perspective. They enjoy pretend play and can mentally visualize objects. So during this stage, children transition from sensory-motor exploration to more symbolic thinking. They use language, symbols, and mental imagery to represent objects, ideas, and experiences. However, their thinking remains egocentric, meaning it revolves around their own perspective. They struggle to understand viewpoints different from their own. Children engage in imaginative play, like for example, creating scenarios with dolls, toys, animals, or imaginary friends. A cardboard box becomes a spaceship, and a stick transforms into a magic one. And the best, for example, for this is, I guess we all know, we experienced this one, playing a restaurant. So, I mean, all of us experience that. Hindi ka na magluto-luto, di ba? Magluto-luto. So, kanang age 2 to 7, na-adjud na diha ang kuan nila, imaginary. Next one is concrete operational stage. Starts from 7 to 11 years old. Children develop logical thinking about concrete events. They grasp the idea of conservation, understanding that quantities remain the same despite changes in shape or appearance, and they also become skilled at organizing and categorizing objects. So during this stage, children's thinking becomes more logical and less influenced by intuition or appearance. Key achievements include understanding conservation, and also it improves organization skills. They become adept at organizing objects into categories based on shared properties. For example, sorting animals by habitat or shapes by geometric properties. So, children understand that action can be undone if you stretch a spring. They know it can return to its original shape. Another example is, imagine a children arranging a set of differently shaped blocks. They can now group them by color, size, or function. Their newfound logical thinking allows them to mentally manipulate these categories. So, during the concrete operational stage, young minds are like little scientists, experimenting with logic, conservation, and organization. The last one of the stages is the formal operational stage. It starts from 11 years old to beyond. So adolescents and adults gain the ability to think abstractly and reason hypothetically. They can now approach problems with methodically and consider different viewpoints. The formal operational stage represents a cognitive leap where individuals move beyond concrete thinking and venture into the abstract. It's like upgrading from a basic calculator to a powerful supercomputer for the mind. For example, imagine a teen who is passionate about climate change. So during the formal operational stage, the teen doesn't just accept fact. He questioned it, analyzed, and theorized. So let's just say name Rama. Okay, Rama wonders, what if we drastically reduce carbon emissions? So he asked, how about, and he forms a hypothesis. If we transition to renewable energy source, will slow down global warming. And this, Rama dives into research, examining data, models, and expert opinions. So he conducts through experiment. What if every country committed to reforestation? And now her mind become a laboratory, testing scenarios, and weighing consequences. So Rama's abstract reasoning isn't limited to climate science. He also contemplates justice, ethics, and meaning of freedom. In his mental workshop, he constructs bridges between ideas, connecting dots that span continents and centuries. And so, during the formal operational stage, minds become cosmic explorers, mapping constellations of thought and navigating uncharted intellectual territories. Again, the four subsequential stages of development of John Piaget theory is that the first one is sensory motor stage from birth to 2 years old, and the pre-operational stage, it starts from 2 years old to 7 years old. And for the third one, the concrete operational stage starts from 7 years old to 11 years old. And the last one is the formal operational stage, starts from 11 years old and beyond. And again, cognitivism is a study of psychology focusing on mental processes. It's the cognitive learning theory that explains the brain's role in processing information when we learn. So now let's move on to the principles of cognitive, which will be discussed by Ms. Angel Rose Wazola.
So for continuation, we have the 3 principles of cognitive. First, information processing. Second, cognitive structure. Third, internal mental representation. So first, let's talk about information processing. So what really is information processing all about? Information processing views the mind as a dynamic system. It accepts, processes, and outputs information like a computer. The brain is the hardware, while mental processes are the software. So the input is the mind takes in information from the environment, while the mental software processes the received information, and the output, the mind produces responses based on the processed information. I get an example of that. So example is the pain that registered as a headache, or hearing a co-worker ask a question, or either writing an instruction. So, example, all of us experience a headache. So the first thing we feel is the pain, and then second we process the pain that we receive and consider it as a headache. Or example, hearing our co-worker or our classmates, example is our classmates, talk about something, then we process it in our minds, and after that, we respond based on our processed information. Next, we have cognitive structure. So, cognitive structure is how knowledge is stored and accessed in our minds. It's organized like a well-structured library. Schemas are mental blueprints for understanding concepts, objects, events, or situations. An example for this is, an anxiety disorder. Utilize a schema for threat. Or cognitive structure about danger would have automatic thoughts and an internal dialogue that would be considered with a schema. So in terms of organized, like a well-structured library, we can think about, like, we're thinking about an object, like it's being stored in our mind, and we remember it. Like example, we're putting things, so we're going to remember where we put it. The last one is internal mental representation. So internal mental representation, our minds create and store mental images, symbols, and concepts. These representations are shaped by unique experience and perspective. They represent physical objects, abstract ideas, emotions, and memories. So our internal mental representation, it was like our core core memory about someone or something, either physical or mental objects that we admire physically or mentally, that we never forget, and we always store it in our mind. So it's a core memory. It's a core memory. It is what we always remember unexpectedly or expectedly. It's a unique memory or a unique emotion we always hold. For example, of that. What am I doing? So, for example, the core memory is a main example, like an event. We remember an event, and that event is very special to us, that we store it deep within us, and we can remember it day by day or time by time. So that's all principles of cognitive. Again, the three principles of cognitive are the information processing, the cognitive structure, and internal mental representation.
Hi guys, so let's talk about cognitive processes. What is cognitive processes? Cognitive processes are interconnected components within the broad cognitive system. They collaborate to help us understand, interact, and navigate environment. So, nasa 6 functions ang kanang cognitive processes, which is the perception, attention, memory, language, problem solving, and decision making. So with these 6, it help us more to understand our environment. So diba na 6 senses atong body. So with this, it helps us sad na maka-comprehend ta sa usa ka butang. And undergo mo process siya para maka-gain tag knowledge ana o makabuhat tag decisions, because it's what you understand gikan sa mga operations, like outcome na gani siya. So yun na ang cognitive is all about mind. You have to comprehend, dapat na ang mga functions usa pa ka maka-comprehend, usa pa mo maka-think o masul sa imong mind. So the first cognitive process function is perception. Perception is the ability to capture, process, and actively make sense of the information that our senses receive. It is the cognitive process that makes it possible to interpret our surroundings with the stimuli that we receive throughout our sensory organs. So, same sa kung di kang ganina about sa cognitive processes. Wait, ang data. Ayun lang. So, it involves our senses sa tong body. Before ta makakomprehend sa usa ka butang, it mo-connect, dapat na ata atong mga senses sa before ta makakomprehend ana. Before ta makauna kung unsa na mo na siya. The example sa perception is kanang example kanang naglakaw ka sa inyuhan it. Nakadungog kang dagkong pingog. So, undergo lang siya sa process na makauna na jud kada yung nagkaaway sila. Diba mo, involve siya critical thinking. Next is the attention. Attention is a cognitive process that allows us to choose and concentrate on relevant stimuli. So, connected yapang siya sa senses based sa kung giingon, diba ang cognitive connected siya sa senses sa body. So, kita, diba, as a person, you are very observant. Example, dali na dyan masap na attention, diba? Example is, nag-chika ka sa imong amiga, tapos, naka-observe ka, na wala siya nag-pay og attention sa imong mga chika. So, ano na rin ka sa, involved na imong critical na yung mind, na, ano siya, fake, diba? So, the third is memory. Memory is important cognitive process that allows people to encode, store, and retrieve information. So, it involves yapon our senses. Okay, kung na kay mga nagain na knowledge, kung paano na hearing, di ba? We use hearing to understand. So, mo nang it is connected or connected cognitive processes ang memory. Kay diha man store ang ato mga nagain na knowledge. The fourth function is language. Language is information processing, learning, and memory conceptual development, metacognition, theory of mind, and self-regulation. So, involved yapon ang language kay para maka-enter ako, makasabot sa ato ang kanang sa isip kataw. We use language to communicate, diba? To understand someone. Para mapagawa sa nato ang own perspective. 6 is problem solving. It's a cognitive process of the brain that searches or infers a solution for a given problem in the form of a set of paths to reach of expected goals. So, as a person, naging tayo mga kabalo dito mo solve sa itong mga problem. We have our own critical thinking na kabalutan mo solve bad sa atong mga problem para makabot na sa atong expected na goals. And the last is decision making. Is one of the basic cognitive processes of human behaviors by which a preferred option or a course of action is chosen from among a set of alternatives based on a certain criteria. So, as a person na naman own decisions sa atong life. So, mandurgyo yung process sa atong before ta mo decision, nag-involve pagitag mga sa itong mga perception na mga sa itong mga language nilang nag-use para maka-decide ta o sa itong mga ma-feel atong comprehension ana nabutang.